looked at it from the 21st century perspective, this was a trust that was giving Sir William Elliot a certain amount of money every year to be able to live for his health, education, maintenance, and support. But he was, spending above and beyond his income. So
and that's right. It was probably one of the early workings of, the basics of how a trust works. And when we use the word trust, I've always seen a lot of times people have this misconception, it has to have, millions of dollars in it, and it's not for us. But, I always say when I chat with my families, right, when I say, hey, do you want to talk about trust? Or they'll ask me, what's this about trust? And all I tell them, it's just a tool. It is just a tool. It's a financial tool, but it's a tool that can help you do a certain thing and get to a goal, So in this situation, for whatever reason, it was a tool that says, here's money for you. You can't get it all at once. You're going to get distributions. And, how do we control that? Through a tool called a trust, right? And that's what it is. It's just conceptually, that's what it is. But, when I read this, you're right. I mean, I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, so everybody kind of had a trust in that situation when you're passing it down,
Yeah, exactly. And, with the trust.
And what I thought was interesting, Chris, was the flexibility of it, right? Because, when we're helping clients and we have certain tools we present, some tools are very flexible, that things can be modified according to a circumstance. And then there are some tools that you really can't. There's limited things you can change. But, so then in this situation, when we saw how this person is struggling, you would wish that wish there was a way to change the tool, change the trust so that have bigger distributions, or what's left in it, just have access to it, whatever it is, and these are the things you can build in your trust somehow, some way, not all, but in some trusts you can build some of these circumstances, and that's why you just have to be thoughtful and take your time when created. It's so easy to say, I want this, I want that, and then when you and I prod these questions that we've seen down the line, it does cause them to pause. And that's why these things are very useful, but they take time. They take time. My mom had always said, instant is not always good, like instant coffee, so.
Except if you're talking about ramen. I'll take instant ramen in a heartbeat.
But yeah, go on, Chris. Yeah. But, it's a great, that's a great example, Jane Austen's, themes in her book are a great example of how a trust can work, right? And how it's hard sometimes.
And exactly. And it is so funny when I was watching this movie, and of course I'm watching this movie while being, here I am drafting plans, and I'm like, wow, that's what he was doing. And so whenever I'm talking to clients and whenever I'm thinking about how they want to pass on their assets, my question to them was, well, how much flexibility do you want them to have? Do you want it to be limited? Or do you want them to be able to dig into that big principle? Because what happened here is, it looks like Sir Walter Elliot couldn't dig into the principle. He had a certain amount every year, which is what happened very often in the States back in the day. He had a certain amount of every year that he had every year, but he just kept spending. And instead of putting something for savings for the next, that's all he got. And he just kept spending.